Hello class. In today's lesson, we're going to go over our skills that we have previously learned on how to divide by one-digit divisors. Before we start this video, I want you to pause it and write your full heading, including your first and last name, the date, mathematics, and your period number with the title of this assignment of divide by one-digit dividers. Do that now. Now that we have our heading in our book, before we could start the lesson, we do have to go over 3 different vocabulary words. So the first word is dividend. Dividend is the number that you are going to break up. So when we read a word problem, we have to decipher which one we're going to break up. That is our dividend. Then our second word is divisor. Divisor is the number we are dividing by. So then when we read our word problem, we have to say, all right, what size groups are we supposed to be having? And then the last word is quotient, and that is the answer to the division problem. So let's look at an example. We have 10 divided by 2 equals 5. The 10 is what we are breaking up, so that is our dividend. The 2 is our divisor. That's what our size groups are supposed to be. And our quotient is 5. That is our answer. So a dividend is divided by a divisor to find the quotient. I want you to pause this video now, write our vocabulary words along with the example. Here's an example you can use, okay, for each one of these 3 words. Pause the video and do that now. Now that we have our vocabulary down for us to remember our previous skills that we learned in previous years, let's look at a problem. So here we have Jenna's family is planning a trip to Oceanside, California. They will begin their trip in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and will travel 2,754 miles over 9 days. If the family travels an equal number of miles every day, how far will they travel each day? Check your answer. So when I read this, I see right here, okay, that we have 2,754 miles and we have 9 days. So I have to determine which one is our dividend and which one's our divisor. So I see in reading this problem, I need to break up the 2,754 miles. So that is my dividend, right? And my divisor is the 9, so I'm dividing by 9. So when I write this out, what we've previously learned, we build our house to do our division. Our dividend goes inside, so that's 2,754. And our divisor goes outside. We need to find what this quotient is. We don't know what this quotient is just yet until we do our actual division. So let's start with it. So we have the 9, our divisor. We have to determine how many times does that go into 2. 9 cannot go into 2 because 2 is less than 9. So I know it goes 0. And then 0 times 9 is 0, so I minus 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. So I figured out the first number. Then I go to the next number, and I'm going to bring that down. I draw an arrow so I know that I've accounted for this number. Now I say 9 goes into 27. How many times? Since 27 is larger than 9, I know 9 can go in it. And knowing my 9 multiplication table, I know that 9 goes into 27 3 times because 3 times 9 is 27. So I write the 3 above the 7, and then I subtract 27. 27 minus 27 is 0. Just because I have a number of 0 down here, I'm not done because I still have other numbers without arrows. So I need to bring my next number down, the 5. I have to determine how many times does 9 go into 5. But since 5 is less than 9, I know 9 cannot go in it. So I have to make that as a 0. The 0 here is very important because it's a placeholder. And 0 times 9 is 0. So now I have 5 minus 0 gives me 5. I'm still not done because I have another number here. So I have to bring the 4 all the way down. Notice how I'm using the arrows so that I know exactly where I'm putting it. Now I look at my 9 multiplications and I know that 9 times 6 gives me 54. Since this is 54, I know 9 goes into 54 6 times. Sorry, I just have to undo that part. It goes 6 times. So I'm going to put a 6 right here. And 9 times 6 is 54. So 54 minus 54 is 0. Now that this number is 0 and I have no numbers here, I know that I'm done with my division. But I'm not done with this question because the question also says here, check your answers. Whenever I divide, I always want to do a check. Why do I want to do a check? I want to do a check because I find division to be one of the operations that are most hardest for people to do, and including myself. So how do I do a check? A check, you always take the quotient, your answer of 306, times your divisor. So I write 306 times my 9. And let's check. So 6 times 9 gives me 54. So I bring down the 4 and I carry the 5. 9 times 0 is 0 plus the 5 gives me 5. And then 9 times 3 is 27. So I write 27. I have no more numbers here and nor do I have any other addition. So I look and I see that these two numbers, right, they're the same. So that my answer is 306. So I'm going to write this out as 306 miles per day. So Jenna's family had traveled 306 miles per day. Since this is a word problem, I needed to put my answer in a sentence. And then I'm just circling my answer. I want you to pause this video now, and I want you to write the question, as well as all of our work and our final answer. Don't forget your check, because when you divide, you are expected to do a check as well. Now that we have this problem down, we can go to another problem. So here it says solve and check. We have 614 divided by 6. So again, the 614, that's our quotient. Our dividend. And the 6 is our divisor. So our dividend divided by our divisor. So I'm going to create my house. And I'm going to write my dividend inside of 614. And I'm going to write my divisor on the outside. Now I go step by step, one by one, my divisor into the first number and so forth. So how many times can 6 go into 6? Since 6 is equal to 6, I know it's only once. So I'm going to write a 1. And then 1 times 6 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. But I'm not done yet because I still have other numbers that I'm not accounted for. So then I need to bring down the 1. How many times can 6 go into 1? In reality, 6 cannot go into 1 because 6 is larger than 1. So I need to put a 0 above that 1. Notice how I'm lining up. And 0 minus 6 is 0. So now I have 1 minus 0 is 1. I'm still not done because I have another number I didn't account for. So let's bring that down. So how many times can 6 go into 14? And knowing my multiplication facts, I know that 6 times 2 is 12. And if I added another 6, I would get 18, which is larger. So I know that 6 goes into 14 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. So I have 14 minus 12 gives me 2. Since we haven't started working on decimals yet, we're going to leave our remainder. And we leave that with a small r and then put the remainder afterwards. Now I need to go and do my check. I do my check. I always label it check so I know that it is a check, right? So I take my quotient without the remainder, 102, and I'm going to times that by my divisor of 6. So 6 times 2 is 12. I bring down the 2 and I carry over the 1. 6 times 0 is 0 plus the 1 is 1. 6 times 1 is 6. Now I know 612 is not equal to 614, but I still have this remainder that I need to add. So I'm going to add my remainder. And remember, I'm lining this up by place value. This remainder 2 is in the ones column, so I must put it underneath the ones column in the 612. Now I know 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 plus 0 is 1. 6 plus 0 is 6. So when I look at this and I see that my dividend is the same as my check. So I know that my answer is 102, remainder 2. So I'm going to write that at the end, 102, remainder 2. And then I'm going to circle it. Sorry, this should have been a bigger 2. I don't know why I wrote it as an exponent, but that's a 2, remainder 2. I want you to pause this video now and write this in your notebooks. Let's do one more problem. So we have 624 divided by 8. So our dividend is 624. That goes inside of our house. And our divisor is 8. And that goes outside of the house. So I look at this and I go, how many times can 8 go into 6? And it can't go because 6 is less than 8. So I've put a 0. 0 times 8 is 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. I'm not done because I have to count for 2 more numbers. So I'm going to bring down the 2. And now I have 62. And I know from my multiplication facts that 8 times 7 is 56 and 8 times 8 is 64. Since 64 is larger than 62, I must use the 7. So I'm going to put a 7 above the 2. 8 times 7 is 56. So I'm going to write the 56 here, right? So the 6 becomes a 5 and the 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 6 gives me 6. 5 minus 5 is 0. So now I have the remainder of 6. But I'm not done yet because I didn't count for this 4. So I'm going to bring down the 4. 8 times 8 I know is 64. So I'm putting an 8 above the 4 and I minus the 64. So 64 minus 64 is 0. Since this is a 0 and I have no numbers to finish with, I know that I'm done with my division. So I just have to do my check. So my check is my quotient of 78 times my divisor of 8. So 8 times 8 is 64. So I'm going to bring down the 4 and I'm carrying the 6. 8 times 7 is 56. 56 plus 6 gives me 62. So I'm going to write the 62 as I have nothing else to multiply. And I notice that these two numbers are the same. So I know that my final answer is 78. So I'm going to write 78 and I'm going to circle 78. So notice this problem and this problem, I only circled the answer. I didn't write a sentence. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Okay? So pause this video now and write down the third problem. Now that we have this down, I want you to try this on your own. Here are two problems. You have 3,224 divided by 4 and 5,654 divided by 3. Make sure you show all of your work and do a check for each one. These are not word problems, so you don't have to put your answer in a sentence, but you may do so if you choose. You also may pause this video and re-go over the examples as many times as you need to.